March 12th. Our bandwidth is all over the place today, obviously, and we're going to try to run this at a lower. We're going to run this at a 3K bandwidth this time instead of 4K. So we're hoping that this will, or the 3 meg bandwidth instead of 4. So we're hoping that that this helps. You know, it's interesting how at one time this kind of upstream bandwidth was never even imaginable until now. And it's like, whoa, wait, you mean to tell me I can get a 10 10 megs up. I mean, when I was working in the industry, when I was working in the telecom industry, yeah, we had 1.524 meg down and like 768 up on our DSL service. So yeah, we've definitely come a long way. Anyway, enough of that. Wow, what a week it has been. This is crazy. Everything going on. Good morning, Brock. Good morning, NC Photos. We see you there on the chat. Thank you for joining. It's this one time of the week I try to get together because, we need the support. And, obviously now we need the support more than ever. And, it's been a very busy, crazy time, and a lot is going on. We're seeing a lot of things changing just in the past 24 hours, and some of this impacts radio. I was actually out yesterday taking my mother-in-law, I should say, to a medical appointment. And that's when I got the news that NAB's been canceled. And so, yeah, NAB's been canceled. E3's been canceled this year. We'll talk about some of the other events that are going to be going on and that are still kind of up in the air. So. Also to think about what your station is doing, to inform your listeners, especially if you are a minority language station. And when I say minority language, I'm really referring to like non-English, non-Spanish. I'm referring to those who are running Haitian, Creole, who are running Russian, Chinese, the various other languages, any of the Native American languages and such. Your community is relying on you, and they're going to be coming to you for information. The more information we can provide, the better. Now, again, not to get political, but whether our government is really a reliable source for information right now is questionable. And, unfortunately, we may have to run with what they say, but also to any factual information that's out there, especially information that comes out of the World Health Organization. Please, please, please be careful with internet memes. I know they are fast, easy, quick, and in some cases demystifying, but in some cases they're also misleading. And, I've been trying to fact check the various memes that have been crossing my path here on my personal Facebook page. And you know, there's some really so there's some really misleading ones that are out there. So just be careful. Be careful of the information that you pass on. We want factual information out there. The idea is that we need the public to know. And if your stations do anything like that, and if you're doing something that's special, up and above and beyond, please document it. Document it. And go on to and document it, because we're going to need that information. Because I am not going to capitalize on what is going on with COVID-19, but I will say that the way that LPFM stations cover the COVID-19 situation, especially reaching down to this hyper-local level that LPFM could help us as we try to achieve LP 250. More about COVID-19 in a bit. Right now, here are the numbers. Renewals. Actually, I'm kind of impressed here that Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, we only have 8 straddlers, and we're not even super close to, we're still a few months out of the expiration of the licenses. Now, Alabama, Georgia, we still have 9. We've still had we've had 9 for quite a while. And of course they've got until April 1st to get their act together, or else they're going to go gone and kaput. And there's no way back. So that's where we're at. So far for Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, there we go. 17% of stations have filed. You still have 21 days to file. So there's still plenty of time. And I'm always telling stations, don't file early. File on or after the 17th of March, which is the date of your last pre-file announcement. File some time after that, because if something was to change, if your station was to go silent, or something else was to happen, if you file now and then there's a change of events, then you have to go in and amend your application. If you want REC to handle your renewal, REC's fee is $100. And you can actually do it very easily on the Easy Form. The URL is right up there. easyform.recnet.net. Please be truthful in your renewal filings. And if your station was silent for a period of time, please make sure, if you were silent for more than 30 days, even if you didn't file as silent, keeping in mind that LPFM stations technically do not have to file as silent. They don't have to file. I mean, technically, the rule is just not there. And let me turn down the old phone here. What a great studio operation we have here. Anyway, even if you don't file as silent, if you're down for more than 30 days on an LPFM, you still have to disclose it on the renewal. If you're worried that the FCC will not grant your renewal because of that, don't worry. Don't worry so much, because it's just to let the FCC know what's going on. It will delay your renewal grant, but we are seeing stations that have checked no to the renewal to the silent station question, and they still get granted. What they're looking for are the habitual stations the licenses that are trying to warehouse the spectrum. And what they're looking for is, if you're silent for 363 days, you come back on the air for 4 days, you file resumption, you turn around, you file a silent again, like a week later or 3 days later, and then you're down for another 360 something days, and then you do the same thing again, and it's just this vicious cycle over and over and over again. The FCC is going to look at that, and in the past, they have given partial renewals in those cases. So something to think about, people. Something to think about there. Let's see. Are you going to LA? No. With the cancellation of NAB, I know I posted a while back that I was considering doing a Southern California trip instead, but there's a few things that have happened since that discussion. I've had some serious talk with my family out here. Keep in mind, out here where I'm at here in Riverton, I am very close right now to two very elderly people, and one who's not as elderly but does have, maybe a little bit more of a weaker immune system than I do. I mean, where it comes to those kinds of things, I mean, I'm strong as a horse when it comes to some of these things. So that kind of drove my decision. Also, too, there was a story that came out yesterday, I believe, where two TSA screeners in San Jose, California, tested positive. So, obviously, being in the airports is going to be very concerning. And so right now we're going to stay put. I think there's been one case already in, I think we've had one case already in Delaware. And I think there's been about 10 cases or so right now in Maryland. And that's kind of where we're at right now with what's going on locally here. So, yeah, just definitely a lot of concerns here. And, I've got to put my family first, because there's nothing right now that I can do. There's nothing I'm doing right now, actually, that requires my live presence, physical presence, at a location that I cannot do remotely from here. I can get on the phone and call all these stations. I can call John at KWSV. I can call Hans over at KBUU. I can call Mark over at KQLH. I could call Tyler down at KXRN. All these people, I can call them and say, "Hey, how are you guys doing? How are things going? Is there anything we can help you with?" So what? I don't get video. I don't get pictures. BFD. I'll have them send me pictures if I need them. So yeah. What I was worried about, actually, this is kind of petty, but, with the cancellation of the NAB, I did have an airline ticket looming out there. And the airlines right now, all the major carriers, United, American, Delta, JetBlue, they're all allowing tickets that were purchased anytime. I did everything very early at NAB. I did it literally almost right after the NAB was over last year. I was going to go last year, but it was a last-minute ditch effort, and I just couldn't get all the logistics correct, so we didn't go. But I booked in June, and so if I was to fly again, it would have to have been sometime between now and mid-June. And there's just, no place to go. no place that I would feel safe going, where I wouldn't run the risk of bringing back something for the family, to the family. We, even I canceled out our plans in April, about a week or two before. I was going to go to NAB. We were going to go to DC for the Cherry Blossom Festival, and I've canceled out on that out of these concerns. The Cherry Blossom festivals and the Japan festivals that are going on that were scheduled for, we've heard so far from San Francisco and Philadelphia, those have been canceled. A lot of Asian American events have been canceled. And obviously, a lot of stuff going on in Japan right now has been canceled. Nippon Professional Baseball doesn't even have an opening day date anymore. They've canceled. They've postponed, I should say. Here in our country, the NBA. The NBA has postponed their season. And within the past hour, we've heard that the GAA, which is the Gaelic Athletic Association, along with the Ladies Gaelic Football Association and the Camogie Association, which is basically the cornerstone of the major sports of Ireland, have all completely suspended activities in Ireland. So no Gaelic games, no GAA, no Camogie until further notice. So we're going through some tough times here, people. And And what is our priorities? Toilet paper? Can somebody please explain the toilet paper thing to me? That I don't get. Fortunately, I was in the store, our local Food Lion store here in Del Mar, Delaware, just a few days ago. And while the shelves of Lysol and disinfectants and stuff were completely bare, there was still toilet paper. I don't get the whole toilet paper thing. I just seriously don't get it. Anyway, FCC agenda. These are the items coming up for the next FCC meeting, which is scheduled way at the end of March 31st. The first item on there is the mandating the use of what was originally called Shake and Stir. I don't know why the FCC changed it to Stir Shaken. But to mandating Shake and Stir to combat caller ID spoofing. Now, STIR and Shaken are two different protocols that are used for that the telecom industry has come up with to try to identify bogus spoof caller ID calls and to block those. That's what Shake and Stir or Stir Shaken is all about. So this is a caller ID robocall scam call issue that is on the agenda. Second item is amending the distributed television systems rules to facilitate next generation television. What is it, DTS? DTS is kind of like a digital booster for television, and for digital television, it allows for a single frequency network. If you want to see a good example of DTS, let me make sure it's working here. But if you go to fccdata.org, and look up KNBC, that's the NBC affiliate in Los Angeles. Let's see. And if you go to the website and then click on the application on the left-hand side that is the current application, which is the BMPCDT application that ends with ABJ, you'll see that we have a DTS indicator on there. But if you bring it up, let me see if I can do that here. Hang on, kids. I'm gonna try something here. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this will work. FCCdata.org. All right, we're gonna do some live stuff here while we're chatting along here. Let's see here. KNBC. No relationship to WNBC, but that's a story for another day. Let's see if we can get this to work. Fun times they are happening here, people. And let's see if we can get this to work. There we go. So let's go up here and see here. So, okay, now if you look on the map, you're going to see that there are this is for KNBC out of Los Angeles. You're going to see that the digital television station, there's actually 3 transmitters for this station. There's the main one, which is the one that's in red. That's the main facility. That's Mount Wilson. And that is that's the major broadcast tower site for Southern California. The one that you see over there, that's marked number 3, that's to the northwest, the one that's in green, that's Oat Mountain. Many years ago, I lived at the very foot of very far, right down. Actually, I lived. I don't know. Let's see. If the mouse arrow is showing, I've got the mouse arrow on where I used to live when I lived in Chatsworth. So yeah, it was very close. And that is Oat Mountain. That's not really a broadcast site, more or less. That it is a site for land mobile equipment. That used to be like an old military Nike site, I believe, at one time. And there's a lot of land mobile up that way and such. There's a couple translators that run from Oat. And yeah, so they're running at that site. They're running a 25 kilowatt non-directional antenna at Oat. Actually, it looks like all their antennas here are non-directional. And then the third site is looks like it's in Wrightwood or somewhere. Yeah, just so in the hills of Wrightwood. There's the third site there, which is the blue site. And so that covers the Antelope Valley, probably into the the Victor Valley, possibly into the Antelope Valley too. So that whole entire north, Los Angeles North County. Now, normally in the past, historically, because I used to live in these areas, have been historically cut off from television in the past, and for the Victor Valley area there, which is that far northeastern area there, which would be Victorville, Barstow, in that area, we had translators. We had analog translators at one time up that way, and that was the only way we could get television service, was translators going in from Los Angeles. And if you lived up in the Antelope Valley, you could sort of pick up television off of Mount Wilson. And so Channel 4, NBC's got it covered very well in Los Angeles with their DTS network. But that's what DTS is. It's it's single frequency network on channel boosters for television. So that's what we got there. Let's see what's up here. Third item is defining significantly viewed television markets and our local TV stations. And this is something that has to do with this is a cable rule that's been around for quite a few years. And the idea is that the stations that you can get on your cable that are not your local stations, but the cable company is still supposed to carry them, and the big ones, of course, are the that we have is like we have it out here. We are in a here in Wicomico County in the Salisbury market. We have right now we have, I believe, one Baltimore station and 2 Washington, D.C. stations here. We have, let's see, we have WJZ. Oh, no, sorry, we got more than that. We've got WJZ out of, which is, I believe, the CBS affiliate out of Baltimore. We also have WBAL, Channel 11, the NBC affiliate out of Baltimore. And we also have WRC, which is the NBC affiliate out of Washington, D.C. And we have the Fox, was it WTTG, I think it is, out of Washington, D.C. that's carried on our cable system. And a lot of that is under the significantly viewed rules. The Salisbury area is sort of a new market for television. It's one of these Johnny-come-lately markets. And back in the analog days, everybody had VHF antennas that were up, and they were either on rotors, or they would just be pointed towards Baltimore. Because with a good antenna, the Baltimore TV stations used to come in really good over here. They still kind of do. If we were to set up a digital TV receiver, and we were able to precisely point it correctly towards Baltimore and scan the TV, we could pick up some stuff here from the other side. But however, we now have local stations here. We have a local. When I first moved here, we had a local CBS station, which is WBOC TV on Virtual 16. We also have WMDT, which is the ABC affiliate, and I believe they're Virtual 45 or 46, something like that. Those are the 2 stations. We still do not have a full service NBC affiliate out here on the Eastern Shore. We do have a low power TV affiliate, WRDE out of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. They are they're our local affiliate here. So that's pretty much what we've got there. I haven't really looked too much at this, but revising program carriage rules and Part 76 review procedures. Part 76 is related to cable television. So if you see the Part 76, that's your magic sign that this has to do with cable, or satellite, or what they call a multiple video program distribution provider, an MVPD. So that's pretty much what's going on there. And de-tariffing telephone access charges and simplifying bills. And I believe I looked at that really briefly. I really didn't get a chance to seriously look at it, but it has to do with the various charges that show up on your bill for various fees and stuff like that. And I think what they're wanting to do is, I think If I'm reading this correct, and I might be wrong on this, and I don't want to cause a panic or hysteria or misinformation, or, Michi said it, so it's got to be true. Y'all should know me better by now. I believe what they're allowing the phone companies to do is to kind of like hide the charges, bundle those fees into their, have their monthly fee or whatever absorb it. So, whether that's a good thing or whether that's a bad thing, it's hard to say. Myself, I prefer the transparency, but at the same time, it gives your bill the impression like you're getting nickeled and dimed to death. Well, you're not being nickeled or dimed to death. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everybody. We're at the bottom of the hour. Feel free to drop in any questions into the chat. I'm also interested in what your stations are doing right now to protect your listeners and to protect your staff and volunteers. What's going on in your stations? Tell me. Drop it in the chat. Also, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We need subscribers. We need support. And feel free to contact us if you need anything done, if you have any questions, as of such. These are the shows that we know are still happening, that have not announced any cancellations yet, although they may change. NASB, which is the National Association of Shortwave Broadcasters, they'll be at WEWN, the shortwave station that's operated by the EWTN folks in Birmingham, Alabama, May 14th and 15th. Haven't heard anything yet on whether they're going to cancel or not. Now, this is the one I'm the most concerned about, people. This is the one that kind of scares me. The Dayton Hamvention. I really think, I hate to say it this year, but I really think that they're going to need to relook at whether the Dayton Hamvention should still go on this year, especially with the vulnerabilities. And obviously not all the questions have been answered. They have not been answered by the scientists. They've not been answered by the doctors. They've not been answered by the WHO. And they have not been answered by our government. So, so these are the things to keep a watch on right now. And I feel like if there's definitely a vulnerable group out there that could be harmed by the effects of this, based on what is statistically going on right now in places like Italy, in places like Hokkaido, where there is a significantly large senior population. Dara is going to have to completely really look at the situation and make some moves, even if the county, city governments don't make that move for them. They need to seriously look at whether they need to continue this year with the Dayton Hamvention. Some of the other ones I've noted that are still way out in the future. TAB will be in Austin this year from the 29th to the 30th. That's the Texas Broadcasters Association trade show. The NAB Radio Show Nashville on September 13th through 16th. Not sure if I will go. It depends on what kind of exhibit space will be there. NAB Show New York, 21st and 22nd of October. And then, of course, various scattered other broadcasters associations. But, right now, like I said, a lot of organizations are canceling their events. So maybe it's just, a good time to hunker down. We talked about the FCC's coronavirus policy. This is what they're doing right now. Now, I don't know if this has changed. I've not seen any releases that this policy has changed since they've extended they've extended various things. Now, we did have a travel ban that came out yesterday. The president announced a travel ban from what was announced over the air and what actually came out in writing looked very different. First of all, during this whole thing, Trump was using the words Europe and such, but it's really the Schengen zone in Europe, which is basically the continent, which are the areas of the continent with the, quote, open borders between the different countries. Ireland and the UK are not in the Schengen. So, the question came up yesterday, why was the UK singled out? And, and of course, I drew some conclusions last night myself on that and on my personal Facebook in regards to Brexit and all. But, when the actual physical document came out that I saw today that came from the official White House proclamation document, it did specifically mention the Schengen, and that does make a lot of sense. If you're traveling between like France and the UK or France and Ireland, there is passport control. There is a customs control that you've got to go through, and this was even pre-Brexit. And because both Ireland and the UK never joined the Schengen agreement, so there's no common open border between those states. Now, there is a common travel agreement between Ireland and the UK, which really has not been impacted because of Brexit. It did create a lot of issues, though, and a lot of worries that the CTA was going to go away, and worried about there would be a hard border between the countries. But cooler heads prevailed. So that's pretty much. So this is some serious shit, people. Really, this is some serious stuff. What is your stations doing? What are your stations doing? Combing around. We've seen some various pieces of advice. Have your staff or volunteers get their own pop filters. Those little screens that you put in front of a microphone that attach onto the boom. That might be a good idea. Clean the windscreens with soap or water. One station says that they're using a mix of mild bleach and soap to clean their windscreens. The Shure company did put out something stating to suggested that you use soap and water. This was the interesting one I saw. Do not microwave your windscreens. Somebody was suggesting that that you microwave your windscreens. And apparently it won't do anything. And also too, if your windscreens are metal, you're gonna have a light show in your oven. That's all you're gonna have. Keep extra windscreens. Consider remote programming. Obviously, if your programmers can produce their programming from somewhere else and feed it in live or recorded and fed in. What is that? This is what one looks like, apparently. This is a disposable. The red or pink polka dots. There are some alternatives out there for you, but that might be that might be a possible solution right there. Is to basically you're putting a condom on your microphone. Why? We did have some other interesting questions that have come up over time over these past few days, and I just want to clear up something here. Is one of the questions that was reached to me was is this coronavirus, this COVID-19, is this justification to ask the FCC for temporary 250 watt because this is an emergency? And I also hear the other one, which is the common myth that in the event of an emergency, you're allowed to operate more power. Okay. Clarifications. First of all, FM stations have no authority to operate more power, even in a time of emergency, without first getting a special temporary authority from the FCC. And in order to get that, obviously you need engineering, and you also need an overly compelling argument. People cite Katrina. The Katrina LPFM station was allowed to go to 250 watts because there was a very compelling showing that was made along with actual factual evidence that the full service stations in the area had all failed, and that there was limited full service broadcasting in that area. That justified a 250 watt LPFM operation. The other LP 250 operation that was authorized was Wimberley, Texas. And in that case, the station wasn't even fully licensed yet. It was still in construction permit. And it was a very haphazard STA type of situation where the FCC did allow it while they were in CP state because of some brush fires in the region. There was, fires in the region. Some stations did not fare so well. There was about a couple of years ago, there was a Southern California station that was fined a few $1,000s. That fine was eventually canceled, but they ran higher power without FCC notification because of the emergency. Where a lot of some of this misinformation is coming from is that there is an FCC rule that permits AM stations, just AM, to use their to use their daytime facilities at night in order to disseminate emergency information. This does not give them the authority to go on all night and play the greatest hits of all time, or whichever national talking head is currently on the bird. It's to disseminate critical emergency information, and then once they're done, then they need to switch back to their nighttime facility. That is the only thing in the FCC rules that permits a quote higher power operation by a radio station, and it would have to be to their authorized nighttime facilities. So if they're authorized to their daytime facilities, if they're authorized 5 kW during the day, it does not mean that they can go to 10 kW at night. So, see how that goes. Joe says, been busy making money the last few days, installing new directional Yagi antennas for translators that were built out with the wrong antenna. Is the FCC suddenly cracking down? I hope so. And obviously you're in Texas, and Texas is a hot spot for this kind of stuff, especially because of one Hector Guevara and one Antonio Cesar Guel. And those who are running a lot of the translators down there that were licensed authorized with these directional antennas, and they're actually running non-directional facilities, or they're running something a lot different than what they, than what the what was authorized. We're seeing that a lot, and it is impacting the LPFM stations, and this brings up an issue with LPFMs. For LPFMs, I should say. This brings up an issue for LPFMs. This brings up an issue for other translators. This brings up an issue for full service broadcasters. Because the way that the current translator rule is written, the way that the new changes that they made to 1203A and to 1204F, 74, 1203, and 1204, it assumes that the translator is all Florence Nightingale and is operating what they're supposed to be running. It does not take into consideration the fact that the translator may be running a non-directional, or they're running even putting an antenna like a Scala CLFM, a Yagi log periodic type antenna, and putting it at the wrong polarity is going to cause a change in beam width. That was never authorized. Joe says LPFMs should be allowed directional patterns so more can fit. That's one of the things we're kind of pushing for right now with translator translator relief. One of the things that we're asking for with translator relief is the ability for an LPFM station to use a non-directional or directional facility to protect other translators. Now, I need to point out that the Local Community Radio Act precludes the FCC from reducing the distance separation requirements between LPFM stations and domestic full service stations. So your A's, your C3s, your B's, your B1s. The FCC cannot reduce those distances because of statute. But there's nothing in the LCRA. If anything, the way the LCRA was written, and trying to get staff to listen to me on this and realize this, has been one of my biggest challenges. Is that the way that the LCRA was written versus the way the original 2000 Radio Broadcast Protection Act was written, it does specifically call out full service stations, which translators are not. So what we're saying is that an LPFM station should be allowed to use contour overlap, prohibited overlap model, between an LPFM and a translator, or between two LPFM stations, as long as they're meeting full distance separation requirements to full service stations as required by statute. That's translator relief. That's what we're asking for. That will open up some opportunities. There's a lot of hesitancy right now to consider directional antennas. There's not a big appetite for this in the commission right now. When I did an earlier last year, I did an ex parte over the phone with the audio division, and we had several of the attorneys, the staff attorneys, and people who were working on 19193 in there. And this might have been on, I think this might have happened in the pre-release, in what I call the circulation, in the circulation period, where, before it was decided on, because we were trying to clear up the issue with the boosters. But the questions around directional antennas came up, and questions came up about that, and there was a lot of concern. If you read the comments, NAB, that was a huge part of NAB's argument against directional antennas, was the fact that what Joe is talking about here is that, you know, there's no guarantees that these LPFM stations are going to construct facilities that are compliant. Now, one of the rules that applies to full service stations that that does not apply to FM translators, nor right now to the limited uses of LPFM, is that there's no requirement for a surveyor, you know, somebody, a surveyor or independent third party, to go out and verify the installation. It verifies that the antenna is the correct antenna installed at the correct height, and also on the correct rotation. We do not have those requirements. The FCC is considering those requirements for LPFM. And, you know, while I don't want to see any substantial added expense in there for an LPFM station, my attitude is also what is fair is fair. If we're going to impose this on an LPFM, then we also need to put this on a translator. Why shouldn't translators also be required to have a surveyor come out and verify the installation? If a translator needs to do this, then they should. Joe says audio division equals Tom Hutton worthless. Disagree. You know, actually, I don't interact a lot with Tom Hutton. I do sometimes. I've never had any issues with Tom Hutton. I definitely would not call him worthless. And, you know, I deal with a lot of different folks there. Gary Lures is really the attorney in the audio division that handles LPFM issues. So normally for those kinds of things, I will go to Gary Lures. If this is a technical issue, I will go to Jim Bradshaw. Those are usually my main go-tos right now at the FCC. The FCC does publish a Media Bureau experts list. If you type in, if you Google FCC Media Bureau experts list, they just updated it. There's a 2020 PDF version out there, and that's got all kinds of names and numbers on there of people in the Media Bureau that you can contact if you have any questions on various things. But yeah, I you know, I want to see, when it comes to the directional antennas, you know, I feel like, you know, we have current rules right now that permit an LPFM to use a directional antenna for a second adjacent. And right now we don't have that requirement. And I feel like, you know, in the cases of the second adjacents and such, I feel like we don't need this, you know, we don't need these requirements because we've been doing this now for umpteen years now. You know, one thing we did clarify though, and keeping in mind that I wrote this before the conversion from CDBS to LMS, was that we needed to consider what I call composite patterns. Anything that is not off the shelf that is listed in the FCC's CDBS system. The CDBS system does have a whole bunch of preloaded antenna patterns for various Scala antennas. So you've got a CLFM pattern, you got a CA2 pattern, a CA5 pattern, and such, just the regular single off-the-shelf antennas. What's missing from that is the Nikon BKG 7788, which has its own directional characteristic. The Scala, the Shively 6812B series antennas, they have a distinctive pattern. They do have a directional pattern to them. That is published by the manufacturer, but it's not in the FCC systems. That drove some confusion with the FCC. But also too, we also have composite patterns where we're able to take antennas and construct and be able to combine them, add parasitics and such to create a more custom pattern. And if you remember, about a month or two ago, we had the article in Radio World about the what do they call them? Pretzel patterns. That's it. I call them Swiss cheese patterns. They call them pretzel patterns. Um, with these patterns that just like it would be impossible to make, but this is what the FCC is allowing this. In the full power world, you are required your directional patterns, because they want FM stations to serve as many people as possible. Your directional patterns in the full service world, you cannot have more than a 2 dB difference every 10 degrees around the pattern, and in no case can the maximum to minimum ratio be more than 15 dB. So an antenna, like for example a Scala CL-FM, which has, which is a very directional antenna with a very small back end to it, that could never be used on its own in full service broadcast. Now, I did design a while back for full service NCE down in Tennessee. I did design a 4 bay Scala. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a YA7, a Scala YA7, horizontal polarized antennas, 15 dB and the 2 dB rules with that, and that got granted. So I must be doing something right. Do you think the 2020 Olympics are still on? Hard to say. There's so much riding on that. So much. Perhaps we'll see crowdless stadiums. I don't know. Skip the whole opening ceremony. Just have the president of the IOC there, Shinzo Abe, there to declare open the games, light the torch, go home, and then the next day start the events without crowds. Maybe that's what the Olympics is going to be. Seattle Mariners, they're talking about playing their first home games in Peoria, Arizona, because of local restrictions. I mentioned the announcement from the GAA regarding Irish sports. Irish Gaelic sports are completely at a standstill right now over all this. Crazy. Crazy, people. But what's a mother to do? Just wanted to throw this in here because this also came up. We also brought this, and I did consult the FCC on this the other day and let them know that we were going to be talking about this, and they were okay with it. The infamous school vacation rule, and this goes back to the days of the Class D stations, the little 10-watt stations that were actually operated on campus. And, there was no automation or any of that stuff. So, the stations would go off the air on the weekends. They'd be off the air during the vacation times. But there is a rule that basically says that stations licensed to educational institutions are not required to operate on Saturday or Sunday or to observe the minimum operating requirements during those days, designated on the school calendar as vacation and recess periods. So bottom line is that if you have if your station is licensed to like an elementary school, a school district, public school district, a high school, a private high school, a private school, a private parochial school, to a small college, to a small to a vocational school, or to a or to a large university system, or as a student operation of a large university system under the LPFM student station rule, your station, you can technically go off the air, even if it's for more than 10 days. Even if it's more than 30 days. You can go off the air without having to file silent if and only if your station is licensed to a educational institution. Most of you are not. Most of you are licensed to, you established your own nonprofits to start these stations, or you have a host organization, and they are not an educational institution. They don't have classrooms. They don't have they don't have a curriculum. But there is this rule out there for the school operated stations. That's basically, like I said, it's a remnant from the Class D days, just to let stations be able to shut down. But I did get a clarification from the FCC that in respect to that rule, they would consider any of these school closures that are taking place right now because of COVID-19 as days that would fall under a recess period. So therefore, if you have a school station and you decide to go south for a while, and you just decide to shut down because you don't want anybody entering the campus, that's an option that's available. So that's pretty much what we've got for this week. Any questions? Last chance for questions, suggestions for anything related to COVID-19. Right now, we're going to, at least since we know now that MB docket 19193 is not on the agenda. There was a rumor that it was going to be, but because 19193, the LPFM technical, is not on the agenda for the month of March, we still have some time to work with staff. We have some time to work the commissioners. We also have some time to work our state legislators, our state senators, our state congresspeople. Let them know about your station. Let them know what you do. And let them know that there's right now a big issue called LP 250, which will allow many stations to be able to get into buildings better, to be able to get out slightly further, but most importantly, to reach as many people as possible within their community. And I'm talking about within your 3.5 miles. 100 watts is just not cutting it. 100 watts is just not cutting it for a lot of stations, especially when they're trying to get into metal buildings, trying to get into places where you need a little more power to penetrate the building. And 100 watts is, this is the argument that we made in our 11749. Our argument in 11749 was not to extend the area where you're able to hear the station, although that is a bonus. It was to help improve the quality of the signal within the hyperlocal 3.5 mile area. That was the main thing that we ran on, keeping in mind that that Amherst and Catholic Radio Association, when they were fighting for that led to the 2012 notice of proposed rulemaking, they were wanting it for the extra distance. And of course, you get the NAB in them saying no, because going out to 7.1 kilometers versus 5.6 is no longer hyperlocal, which is a pile of which is a pile of horse hockey in itself. But we know better. We know better. Do you think COVID-19 will end? You're asking the wrong person. I'm a broadcast advocate, not a doctor. It's hard to say what's going to happen. And, I really don't want to panic, folks. I don't want to panic myself. But what we just need to do is, I think we need to do as a country, as a world community, I think we're kind of doing the right thing right now, and that's called take a time out. Let the experts do the research, figure out what's going on. And we need to assure that if there is any kind of a vaccine that's out there that comes up, that it's available to everybody worldwide without any regards to status, socioeconomic status, social caste, or anything like that. We need to assure that whatever becomes available is available to everybody. And we need to make sure that our government does this, and we also need to make sure that nobody profits off of COVID-19. This is some serious stuff. Some have disregarded it as just being the flu. Some have politicized it and said it was a hoax of another political party. Hey, Tom Cruise just tested positive. What do we do? Whether REC Live is really the place to come up with the solution to the coronavirus or not is hard to say. I think right now what we need to make sure, again, like I said at the top of the broadcast, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are giving out correct information and not misinforming the public. We also have an obligation as first responders, in a way, basically as first reporters. We have a responsibility to make sure that our facilities are available to disseminate information, that our facilities are clean, to make sure that for those who do the dissemination of the information from stations are given the proper protections to do so. But at the same time, we're also dependent on information. We're dependent on information to pass along, and that needs to come from our government sources, and that needs to come from NGOs and world organizations. And yes, that's going to mean trusting the United Nations. It's going to mean the World Health Organization, as well as other NGOs. Get your information from reliable sources, not internet memes. Stop passing the internet memes. Stop connecting this virus with the beer. Stop it with the toilet paper already. I mean, we can make a little light out of this thing, and really, I mean, it's a serious. It is serious, and I wish I had more of I wish I had a more of a solution. But for right now, I feel like we're kind of at a time right now where there's still a lot of unknowns. And instead of risking, I would rather hunker down and get out as much information as we can. And I know, here I am scratching my ear. Ow. I'll wash them, I promise. So much misinformation out there that we need to make sure that we are giving out the right information. And, and this is nothing to make fun of. The jokes about the Corona beer and such like that, that, okay, that's funny up to a point. We also need to make sure that we as broadcasters do not promote any kind of xenophobia. And we've been seeing that. We've been seeing that happening in the US. We've been seeing that happening in Europe, where Asians, regardless of whether they're from China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, wherever they're from, are being faced with hate. And they shouldn't be. And, just, we're hearing stories about Asians being denied opportunities, being denied into various gatherings and such because, quote, Asian folks are more likely to be carrying the COVID-19 coronavirus. And, as well as, I know I'm getting on a tangent now, but, that is, I am, that's my breaking point. That really is. Right now, there is no need for any kind of xenophobia, any kind of stereotyping, any kind of racial stereotyping. We don't need that right now. And please make sure that your show hosts are not promoting that. We do not need that right now. The Asian American community is going through a lot right now with this. There's a lot going on right now. And a lot of businesses there's a lot of businesses are being, economically harmed by what's going on, and a lot of it is being targeted at the Asian community. And we're seeing a lot of events that on the Asian side of the house being canceled over this. And this was done even before some of the cancellations that we're seeing now. So, folks, let's just be nice to each other out there. Let's not spread any wrong information. Information on memes, trying to politicize the situation, trying to use it to justify xenophobia, racism. That needs to stop. Please don't let your stations promote that. Please make sure your talent doesn't do that. Just my final thoughts here. Do you think Euro Radio Day is still going on? I'm not too familiar with Euro Radio Day to know what's going on with that, but chances are, like any other large gathering of more than 250 people, probably not. Probably not. I don't follow the European commercial broadcast industry that close, so can't give you too much of an answer on that. Sorry. All right, if anybody doesn't have anything else, I think we'll finally jump out of here and call it for the rest of the day. Everybody be careful, be safe, take precautions, and don't misinform. Good day from Riverton.